Coming to you from Bravo Performing Arts, this is the Hour to Empower, the podcast created by Brook students for Brook students.
Today's episode is a celebration of Black history in America. Hour to Empower has spent weeks researching and considering the many Black figures of the past who have built America and those who are shaping the future today. Today's podcast will only scratch the surface of the amazing people who have shaped our country throughout history. It's a very special episode, and we hope you enjoy it.
Do you want to learn about creating a podcast? Do you have an idea for a topic or a podcast segment? Any 6th, 7th, or 8th grader can join our team at any time. We meet every Tuesday and Thursday after school. If you'd like to join or want to know more, please email bravo@op97.org. If you like what you hear today, be sure to subscribe to us on YouTube for the latest episodes of Hour to Empower. Okay, enjoy the show!
Hello, and welcome to the special edition podcast, The 60s Civil Rights Movement. Hi, I'm Christopher, and today I'm going to be talking about key events around the 60s Civil Rights Movement. This is not a full story, and there's a lot more to it, but this is a few moments in the 60s. Anyways, enjoy! Our first moment in the 60s is this one. Rosa Parks was on the bus on her way home on an evening of December 1st, 1955. And you have to understand that during the rush hours there were more people on the bus. So if a black person was sitting down and a white person came onto the bus, the driver could tell the black person to stand up and let the white person sit in the black person's seat. So when Rosa Parks was asked to stand, she refused to and was later arrested. Later, she said that she was not doing it because she was physically tired, but because she was tired of giving in all the time. This all caused over a year of boycotting the city buses, and later a judge ordered that this was to never happen again. The next event I want to talk about was on November 14th, 1960. This was the first day of first grade for young Ruby Bridges, but it wasn't a normal first day of school, because Ruby was going to a formerly all-white school. And this was the first time it had been done. She was escorted into William Friends Elementary School by 4 U.S. Marshals. But while this was happening, there was an angry white mob that was protesting this. So it was definitely a different first day of school. The next event I'm going to talk about was on August 28th, 1963. Over 200,000 people marched to the Lincoln Memorial to hold the biggest civil rights demonstration yet. This was where Martin Luther King gave his iconic I Have a Dream speech, and after that, on July 2nd, 1964, Lyndon B. Johnson signs a bill that prevents discrimination in the workplace, and this is a monumental day for Americans. Lastly, there were 2 bills signed later. One was the Voting Rights Act, signed in 1965, that prevented literacy tests at polling places, and the second was the Civil Rights Act in 1963 that provided equal housing regardless of your race and background. Thank you for listening to the special edition podcast, The 60s Civil Rights Movement. This is Christopher Janine. I will see you next time. Bye.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to a very special episode. One that is from a segment that will only be hosted by me and Gavin twice. So please, tune into this episode and next week's episode of Amazing Authors. I'm Kieran.
And I'm Gavin. Like Kieran said, these episodes will only be hosted twice, so please listen. In honor of Black History Month, today we will be talking about some of our favorite books written by historical Black authors. Honestly, I know none of these books, but it's still fun to learn about these amazing Black authors anyway. The authors that we will be sharing today are Amanda Gorman, Gwendolyn Brooks, Maya Angelou, Michelle Obama, and Kwame Alexander. 5 more in the next episode.
We will be talking about how they have positively impacted the world and their many accomplishments and achievements throughout their careers. We have people from all different times, including the 50s, 60s, 70s, and even present day. Like present day. Like Amanda Gorman is all over the news right now and was just on a cover of a Time magazine I saw this morning. So yeah, all different times.
Okay, let's get started.
First off, we have Amanda Gorman, an author and poet who is from Los Angeles, California. She's currently writing a children's book titled Change Sings, which is unable to pre-order as everybody right now wants it.
She gained global recognition after giving an outstanding poetry performance at the 2021 U.S. presidential inauguration. She was personally picked by First Lady Jill Biden.
Wow. And she even gave an incredibly inspiring speech at the Super Bowl. She was also the first person to be named National Youth Poet Laureate. How inspiring!
She is also planning to running for president in 2036. I am definitely voting for her. She, like Michelle Obama, even got an education at Harvard University.
Another inspiring thing about her is that she overcame a speech impediment. Previously, she couldn't pronounce her R's. But after listening to Hamilton's Erin Burr Sir, a song with lots of R's, and rapping along with Leslie Odom Jr., she was able to learn how to pronounce this letter. Now that shows perseverance.
Another cool fact about her is that she has a twin sister. Her name is Gabrielle Gorman, and they are said to look exactly alike.
Whoa. Amanda Gorman has written many poems, including The Hill We Climb, her Super Bowl poem, and is the author of The One for Whom Food is Not Enough.
So thanks to Amanda Gorman for her awesome poems, passion for equity, and drive for change.
Yes. Alright, next we have Gwendolyn Brooks, an incredibly successful poet that has won numerous awards for her works, often about people's experiences in her community.
Also, she just happened to be born in Kansas, but she grew up in Chicago. She, if you haven't figured it out already, has the name of our school. This has to make her important. Another fun fact is, her nickname was Gwendy.
She impacted the world by bringing inspiration to many people and by teaching and being a mentor to many young black poets, striving to have their voices heard.
Another fact is that just at the age of 13, she had already published a poem in a children's magazine. And by 16, she had already published around 75 poems.
75? My lord. That's like 75 poems in 3 years. Anyways, she received the Midwestern Writers' Conference Award in 1943, and then published her first poetry book in 1945. Then, in 1950, she won the Pulitzer Prize for her poetry.
Also, she was invited by President Kennedy himself to present poetry in the Library of Congress in 1962. After that, she got nominated for the National Book Award in 1969.
Wow, that's quite the amount of awards. Though even her life wasn't the easiest. In fact, before she won all of these awards and got to go to the Library of Congress, she had to work as a secretary to help get money to support her poetry.
That's it for Gwendolyn Brooks. She, like all the other authors we're featuring, is pretty inspirational. Like I said before, we named our school after her. Pretty inspirational, huh?
Yes, very actually. Okay, next up we have Maya Angelou, a world-renowned poet, author, actor, and civil rights activist, best known for her incredible poetry. Some of her notable works of art include her poetry books, I Know Why the Caged Birds Sing, and Still I Rise, along with her numerous other poetry books, appearances on TV shows and movies, and civil rights activism.
Cool. Also, Did you know that her name is a combination of her childhood nickname and her husband's last name, Angelos? Interesting what she did there. She was also a coordinator for the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, a black civil rights organization.
Nice. And speaking of civil rights, as a civil rights activist, she got to work with both Martin Luther King and Malcolm X in the civil rights movement.
One of her focuses in some of her poems is women's lives in a male-dominated society, and she has a lot of important themes in all of her poetry. In conclusion, Maya Angelou was an incredibly influential poet, civil rights activist, actor, director, movie producer, and more. So thank you, Maya Angelou.
Woo! Thank you. All right, next we have an incredibly special author. So this person is not just an author, not just a Chicago native, not just a Harvard graduate, not just an attorney, a civil rights activist, a public speaker.
Not just a podcast host, an influential celebrity, an inspiration to billions of people. A portrait of her featured on Smithsonian's National Portrait Gallery. Not just a first for many great things.
And not just a former First Lady of the United States, but she is Michelle Obama.
She even has her own kids' cooking show coming on Netflix on March 16th. Like Kieran just said, she was the first black First Lady of America, and she is a Harvard University graduate, though she also went to Princeton. Not bad.
Not bad at all. She's an advocate for human rights, and her book, Becoming, is a New York Times bestseller. It talks about her personal life experiences and how she found her voice.
In fact, it got so big that she went on tour for the book, traveling the country having moderators such as Jimmy Kimmel, Rachel Ray, and Stephen Colbert. There's even a documentary about it that is now on Netflix.
And right now, she currently lives in Chicago.
So that's Michelle Obama. She was, or actually is, pretty inspirational, isn't she?
Yes, for sure. This next author will be hosted by just Kieran, and next week's episode will have an author hosted by Gavin. Tune in to next week to hear that. Okay, next we have Kwame Alexander, an author and poet of the books Crossover, Rebound, The Playbook, Booked, Solo, Swing, and The Undefeated. I'm sure you'd recognize at least one of those books. After all, he is a Newbery Award-winning author. He's also an activist, as he is the founder of Book in a Day, a student-run publishing program, and co-founded Leap for Gunna, an international literacy project that builds libraries, trains teachers, and empowers children through literature. He was even an inspiration to Jason Reynolds, as Jason has a photo of one of Kwame's books on his website, jasonwritesbooks.com. Check it out. He also serves as Bank Street College of Education's first writer in residence. His books feature incredible stories of people that are interested in all different things. For example, in Crossover, the main character, Josh Bell, plays basketball, or in Booked, the main character plays soccer. Another one of the most intriguing aspects of his books is the creative styles of word formatting he uses. And speaking of formatting, for those of you who have read Crossover, his Newbery Award-winning book, there is now a graphic novel for that! Now that is a fun fact. And speaking of fun facts, did you know that he wrote for TLC's show Hip Hop Harry? And if you don't know TLC, just ask your parents or guardians about them. That's all for Kwame Alexander.
Well, that's all for this week's episode. We hope you enjoyed learning about these amazing authors and people. They are really inspirational.
That's right. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. Next week, we will be talking about the authors Brian Stevenson, Jason Reynolds, John Lewis, Jacqueline Woodson, and Trevor Noah. Again, thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time on Amazing Authors.
My name is Silas Fleming, and this is Silas's Second. In honor of Black History Month, I will be profiling comedy legend Richard Pryor. Richard Pryor was a Grammy Award-winning actor and has even won the Markman Award for American Comedy. He was an amazing actor, being in around 47 films and TV shows. So let's get right into it. Richard Pryor was born December 1st, 1940 in Peoria, Illinois. In 1946, Richard's mom Gertrude divorced Richard's dad Buck, and as a result, a judge granted full custody of Richard to his father. By the time he reached kindergarten, his teacher told his father he was emotionally unstable. To fit into the mostly white elementary school Richard was enrolled in, he started making pantomimes. And as a result, Richard's 6th grade teacher, Margaret Yanks, let him perform them for 10 minutes of class on Friday afternoons, as long as he was on time. He was rarely late again. This gave Richard his first taste of performing. In the spring of 1955, 2 years after Margaret gave him his first taste of performing, Richard entered the George Washington Carver Community Center searching for the Carver's Youth Theater Guild and found a Miss Juliet Whittaker, who showed him his future as an artist. Whittaker saw a future in Richard and taught him everything she knew about theater, including writing, directing, acting, and set design. But she also taught him many lessons about life, and Richard would absorb all of this information. At Carver, Pryor would perform his comedy to a mostly black audience for the first time, and the crowd were delighted by him. This time was key as he learned his love for performing. In the 9th grade, following an altercation with his science teacher, Richard was expelled from his high school and plunged into the adult world. He would no longer have time to spend with Miss Whittaker. After his expulsion, Richard worked many jobs, like as a shoe shiner, janitor, a delivery man, and he even folded cowhide at a factory. Richard didn't find much enjoyment in these jobs, so he would live to meet up with his friends. Since Richard had no stage to perform, he would perform wherever at any time. His good friend Matt Clark remembered how he used to perform on the street to passerbys. In April 1959, Richard, searching for adventure and excitement as well as a chance to leave Peoria, enlisted in the Army. By the end of the summer 1960, Richard was eliminated from service after allegedly stabbing a specialist 4th class with a switchblade. Later in life, in his defense, Richard talks about in his memoir that the other soldier laughed at the movie Imitation of Life, which was a movie that took the many issues of black life seriously. So Richard landed right back in Peoria with a new dream of making it as a performer. Pryor married Patricia Price in 1960 and had one child before divorcing. Pryor worked towards becoming a performer even more. He played a stand-up comedy in many African American clubs across the Midwest. In 1963, Pryor moved to New York, and the next year he made his television debut on the show On Broadway Tonight. He made guest appearances on popular shows such as The Merv Griffin Show and The Ed Sullivan Show. In the late 1960s, Pryor landed some small big-screen roles and released his first comedy album. And in 1967, Pryor remarried to Shelley Bonus, and after having one child, they divorced in 1969. Pryor continued to tour his stand-up, and in the late 1960s, he took a step back from stand-up because he realized he was tired of all the constraints on his material. He moved to California, where he met many people, including the leader of the Black Panthers, Huey P. Newton. In the 1970s, Pryor had many successes on the big screen as well as being a comedian. He worked with many amazing people such as Diana Ross and Lady Sings the Blues. He earned his first Emmy nomination for working on The Lily Tomlin Show and won his first Emmy for the comedy special Lily. Pryor also wrote for the show Sanford and Son, starring comedian Red Fox, and The Flip Wilson Show. Pryor, around this time, won many Grammys for his comedy albums. Pryor married his third wife, Deborah McGuire, in 1977, and they divorced in 1979. At this time, Richard was struggling with drugs and the many heartbreaks in his life. He had many run-ins with the law as well as many health issues caused by his substance abuse issues. He even set himself on fire in an attempt to kill himself in a drug-induced haze. A year before that incident, though, Pryor in 1979 released his most memorable film yet, Richard Pryor Live in Concert. It had theaters packed. In the following years, Richard starred in other popular films like Stir Crazy and Superman 3. During this time, Pryor was married to Flynn Baleen, but after a short time, they divorced. In 1986, Pryor was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, a disease that affects the central nervous system. He remained active, but it put a toll on him. His last film appearance was the film Lost Highway in 1997. In 1998, Richard Pryor was the first man to ever win the Mark Twain Prize for American Humor. This was a huge honor. In 2001, Richard remarried Jennifer Lee. He spent his final years with her in his California home. Outside of performing, Pryor created Pryor's Planet, an animal rights charity. On December 10th, 2005, Richard died of a heart attack. Richard Pryor was not only a great comedian, but an outstanding role model who led the way for many comedians like Eddie Murphy and Chris Rock. Pryor proved from his hardships of many wives and drug abuse that it doesn't matter where you're from or what you look like. As long as you put the work in, you can do anything. I am Silas Fleming, and that was Silas' second. Thank you for listening.
Welcome back to Traveling in Quarantine. I'm your host, Marie Spencer. For the Black History Month episode, today we are going to talk about Barack Obama's hometown, and we're also going to talk about Gwendolyn Brooks' hometown. So let's get started. We are going to travel to Barack Obama's hometown, Hyde Park, Chicago. Although Barack Obama did not grow up in Chicago, he currently lives there. 7 miles south of the Chicago Loop, located on the beautiful shores of Lake Michigan, the Hyde Park neighborhood hosts the city's most electric collection of culture and historic landmarks. Now let's visit Gwendolyn Brooks' hometown. Gwendolyn Brooks' hometown was Topeka, Kansas. Topeka serves as the capital of Kansas and is America's 28th most high-populated state capital. Topeka originates from a term meaning a good place to dig potatoes. That is all for Traveling in Quarantine today. We learned about the hometowns of Barack Obama and Gwendolyn Brooks. Thanks for listening. See you next time.
And now you will hear from many of our Hour to Empower contributors as they recite some of the poetry of Gwendolyn Brooks. Enjoy!
Southeast Corner. The School of Beauty's a tavern now. The madam is underground. Out at Lincoln, among the graves, her own is early found. Where the thickest, tallest monument cuts grandly into the air, the madam lies, contently, her fortune, too, lies there. Converted into cool hard steel and bright red velvet lining, while over her tan impassivity shot skill is shining.
A Song in the Front Yard by Gwendolyn Brooks, read by Mariko Yu. I've stayed in the front yard all my life. I want to peek at the back, where it's rough and untended and hungry weeds grow. A girl gets sick of a rose. I want to go in the backyard now, and maybe down the alley, to where the charity children play. I want a good time today. They do some wonderful things, they have some wonderful fun. My mother sneers, but I say it's fine, how they don't have to go in at 8:45. My mother, she tells me that Johnny May will grow up to be a bad woman, that George will be taken to jail sooner or late. On account of last winter he sold our back gate, but I say it's fine, honest I do. And I'd like to be a bad woman too, and wear the brave stockings of night black lace, and strut down the streets with paint on my face.
Truth by Gwendolyn Brooks, read by Kailani. And if the sun comes, how shall we greet him? Shall we not dread him? Shall we not fear him? After so lengthy a session with shade, though we have wept for him, though we have prayed, all through the night years, what if we wake one shimmering morning to hear the fierce hammering of his firm knuckles on the hard door? Shall we not shudder? Shall we not flee into the shelter, the dear thick shelter, of the familiar, propitious haze? Sweet it is, to sleep in the coolness of snug unawareness. The dark hangs heavily over the eyes.
This was the Hour to Empower podcast, a podcast by Brook students for Brook students. We are your essential source for news, comedy, interviews, and more. Hour to Empower is brought to you by Bravo Performing Arts at Gwendolyn Brooks Middle School. For more information on how you can be part of our shows, clubs, and classes offered by Bravo, please go to bravoperformingarts.org and subscribe to us on YouTube for the latest episodes of Hour to Empower. Thank you for listening.